The sleek vessels of the Taiyang Empire descended through Earth's atmosphere with frightening precision. Captain Do-yoon of the Imperial Vanguard watched the blue planet grow larger on his view screen, his expression unreadable. The command deck hummed with quiet efficiency as his crew monitored their approach to the third planet of this unremarkable yellow star. "Primitive technology, Captain," reported Lieutenant Ju, scanning Earth's defenses. "They've barely established lunar colonies." Her fingers danced across the holographic display, bringing up detailed scans of Earth's orbital infrastructure. "Their most advanced weapons would hardly damage our scout ships, let alone the battle cruisers." Do-yoon leaned forward, studying the blue-green world with practiced eyes. His 20 years in the expansion fleet had taught him caution. "Never underestimate a species based on technology alone," he cautioned. "Imperial records show many advanced civilizations made that mistake." He tapped a command into his personal console, bringing up historical files of conquests gone wrong. "Remember the Loren incident? They appeared primitive until they revealed quantum tunneling weapons." "This is different," Ju insisted. "Our scans show no energy signatures that would indicate advanced capabilities. They still burn fossil fuels for most of their energy needs." "Perhaps," Do-yoon conceded, though doubt lingered in his mind. Something about this planet felt different. The way the humans had organized their societies, their rapid technological advancement in just the last century, it suggested potential that the Empire would do well to recognize. The flagship settled into a geosynchronous orbit above the northern hemisphere, flanked by 4 smaller vessels. Do-yoon transmitted the prepared first contact message on all Earth communication frequencies. Within hours, Earth's leaders had agreed to a meeting. Surprisingly quickly, Do-yoon thought. Most species took days of panic before organizing a response. Dr. Hyejin Park straightened her formal jacket as the transport prepared to land in Geneva. As Earth's chief negotiator, selected for her background in both diplomacy and xenobiology, she carried the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. "The aliens call themselves the Taiyang Empire," said her assistant, reviewing the preliminary communications. "Their language translation algorithms are impressive. They're already communicating in multiple Earth languages." Hyejin nodded. "That suggests they've been observing us for some time before making contact." She kept her face calm, though her mind raced with implications. An advanced spacefaring civilization didn't suddenly appear unless they wanted something. The United Earth Council had been formed just 3 years ago, originally to address climate change and resource allocation. No one had expected it would be handling humanity's first contact with aliens, yet the emergency protocols had activated smoothly, bringing together representatives from all nations within 12 hours of the Taiyang arrival. The meeting hall in Geneva had been transformed overnight. Earth's most brilliant minds had gathered. Scientists, military strategists, cultural experts, and political leaders, all prepared to face this unprecedented moment in human history. Captain Do-yoon arrived with a small delegation. His humanoid appearance surprised many, though subtle differences marked him as alien. The slightly blue tint of his skin, eyes that reflected light differently, and movements too precise to be human. Hyejin stepped forward, maintaining steady eye contact despite her racing heart. "We welcome peaceful exchange with the Taiyang Empire," she stated in the grand meeting hall, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed space. "Earth has much to offer in cultural and scientific exchange." She watched the alien captain carefully, noting how his eyes scanned the room, assessing potential threats and exits. His posture spoke of military training, not diplomacy. Do-yoon's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The Empire is pleased to offer protection to developing worlds like yours. In exchange, we require only reasonable access to your resources and partial administrative control." The words hung in the air: protection, resources, administrative control. Behind her professional expression, Hyejin's mind analyzed the careful phrasing. This was not an exchange between equals, but the opening move in a conquest disguised as diplomacy. "That's a generous offer," she replied carefully. Perhaps you could clarify what protection Earth needs and what reasonable access entails. Our council would need specific details before considering such an arrangement. For 3 hours, they engaged in the dance of diplomacy. Doyum spoke of the Empire's vastness, spanning hundreds of star systems. He mentioned hostile forces that might threaten Earth without naming them. He described the minimal resource extraction the Empire would require, glossing over quantities and locations. Hyjin parried each vague statement with requests for clarification, buying time and information. The alien delegation grew visibly frustrated with human caution. "We'll need time to consider your proposal," she finally concluded. "Our governmental systems require consultation with our global population." Doyum's expression hardened momentarily before smoothing into practiced neutrality. "Of course, the Empire grants you 30 Earth days for deliberation. We will remain in orbit to answer any questions and demonstrate our technological gifts." Later that night, in a secure underground facility beneath the Swiss Alps, world leaders gathered to discuss the thinly veiled threat. The room was swept for surveillance devices every 15 minutes. "They want our planet," said the representative from Brazil. "This protection is just conquest with a friendly face." "Their technology is centuries beyond ours," added the Chinese premier. "Their smallest ship could likely destroy our largest military installation." Hyjin displayed her analysis on the main screen. Their language, their posture, their careful phrasing. Everything points to a standard imperial expansion strategy. They're assessing our capabilities while preparing for resource extraction. General Minho, head of the newly formed United Earth Defense Force, stood up. "We detected their probes scanning our military bases, power plants, and resource deposits. They're mapping our weaknesses. What can we possibly do against such advanced technology?" asked the European Union president. Minho shared a knowing look with Hyjin before responding. "Since the mysterious signals detected from deep space 3 years ago, some of us have been preparing for this possibility." He activated his secure tablet, revealing schematics for hidden facilities around the globe. Operation Safeguard has been developing defensive technologies based on theoretical physics. We've made breakthroughs in quantum shielding and energy weapons. "They're testing us," Dr. Park concluded, addressing the stunned silence. "This is not a diplomatic mission. It's reconnaissance for conquest." General Minho nodded grimly. "Then we should prepare accordingly." He gestured to the schematics. "We have 30 days to activate these systems globally. We need immediate approval and resource allocation." The council erupted in urgent discussion. Outside, the Taiyang ships hung in orbit, their lights visible as new stars in the night sky, watching and waiting for humanity's response. 6 months after first contact, Earth's skies darkened with the arrival of the Taiyang battle fleet. What had been a handful of ships now became hundreds, their massive hulls blotting out the stars like artificial clouds. The people of Earth looked up with growing fear as the alien armada took position in precise formation. Admiral Sunwoo's flagship dwarfed the initial diplomatic vessels, stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its weapons systems were plainly visible, no longer hidden behind streamlined panels as the diplomatic vessels had been. This was a warship designed to intimidate and destroy. In his command center, Admiral Sunwoo viewed Earth through the massive bridge viewport. Unlike Captain Doyoon's cautious approach, Sunwoo saw only a prize to be claimed. "Status report," he demanded, his voice cutting through the quiet efficiency of the bridge. "All ships in position, Admiral," responded his second-in-command. "Earth's militaries have gone to high alert, but their weapons pose no threat to our fleet." Sunwoo smiled coldly. "Open a direct channel to all their communication networks." It's time they understood their position. Across Earth, regular broadcasts interrupted as the Admiral's face appeared on screens worldwide. His blue-tinged features and cold eyes filled people with dread before he even spoke. "People of Earth," Admiral Sunwoo began, his translated voice perfectly synchronized with his lip movements. "Your development period has ended. The Empire requires your formal integration within 30 days. Resistance would be unfortunate. The message continued with details of resource extraction plans, administrative control regions, and population management protocols. It wasn't an invitation to join the Empire. It was a blueprint for occupation. As the transmission ended, panic spread through cities worldwide. The stock markets crashed. Religious leaders called for calm. Military forces mobilized, though most soldiers understood the futility of their weapons against the alien ships. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Earth's highest-ranking officials gathered in a bunker designed to withstand even nuclear attack. The United Earth Council had expanded since first contact, now including military leaders and scientific experts alongside political representatives. General Minho stood at the head of the table, his weathered face showing no fear despite the dire situation. "They believe we've been negotiating," he addressed the Emergency Council. "In reality, we've been preparing." He activated the chamber's secure display system, showing a global map with dozens of blinking points. Protocol Omega is ready for activation. For 6 months, we've been building, adapting, and preparing while maintaining the illusion of diplomatic indecision. Dr. Hyjin Park, who had spent months in apparent negotiations with the Taiyang representatives, nodded in agreement. "Their arrogance works in our favor. They believe we've been stalling out of fear and internal disagreement." "What exactly have we prepared?" asked the representative from Nigeria, voicing what many were thinking. "Their technology is still centuries beyond ours." Minho's expression hardened. "Not as far beyond as they believe." He switched the display to show underground facilities on 6 continents. "In these locations, we've been reverse engineering technology from their so-called diplomatic gifts. The communication devices, medical scanners, and cultural exchange artifacts they provided all contained advanced technology we've been able to study." But the real breakthrough came from Commander Jihoon's mission, Dr. Park added, nodding to a quiet man in a simple black uniform who sat in the shadows of the room. Commander Jihoon stepped forward. With his unassuming appearance and calm demeanor, he looked more like an office worker than the leader of Earth's most elite Special Forces unit. This ordinary appearance had been one of his greatest assets. 3 weeks ago, my team infiltrated a smaller Taiyang vessel during a scheduled maintenance cycle, he explained, bringing up footage from body cameras. The images showed 6 operatives in environment suits, moving through an alien ship with practiced precision. We accessed their central data core and extracted critical information about their propulsion systems, weapons technology, and defense capabilities. Jihoon continued. But more importantly, we discovered something unexpected. The screen changed to show complex equations and diagrams that meant little to most people in the room. Their entire technology is based on a unified field theory that differs significantly from our current understanding of physics. But our scientists believe their model contains a critical flaw. Dr. Yoonha Kim, head of the Global Scientific Response Team, took over the presentation. Unlike the politicians and military personnel, her excitement broke through the grim atmosphere. "Their quantum physics understanding has a fundamental flaw," she reported, examining the stolen data displayed before them. "We can exploit this." She brought up a simulation showing Taiyang shield technology. Their defensive systems operate on a principle similar to our theoretical quantum field manipulation, but they've approached it from a different direction than Earth's physicists have been exploring. The simulation showed energy flowing through alien shield barriers. They've optimized their entire technology around efficiency rather than stability. It makes their systems incredibly powerful but vulnerable to specific quantum phase disruptions. General Minho stepped forward again. "In simple terms, we found their weak point. Dr. Kim's team has developed prototype weapons that can disrupt their shields and propulsion systems." "How quickly can these weapons be deployed?" asked the EU representative. "We've been manufacturing components in separate facilities worldwide to avoid detection," Minho replied. "Final assembly is almost complete at our secure bases. Within 10 days, we'll have our first functional units." 10 days, murmured someone. And the ultimatum gives us 30. Dr. Park's expression was grim. We shouldn't expect them to honor that time frame. Admiral Sunwoo is not Captain Do-yoon. His historical tactics suggest he'll likely begin limited strikes, well before the deadline to demonstrate power. Commander Ji-hoon nodded in agreement. Based on the fleet deployment patterns we observe, they're already positioning ships for tactical strikes against our major military installations. Then we accelerate everything, General Minho decided. All facilities go to round-the-clock operation. Commander Ji-hoon, prepare your special units for defensive deployment at our key sites. As the meeting continued with tactical planning, Dr. Yoon-ha slipped away to her nearby lab. There, dozens of scientists worked with equipment that combined Earth technology with reverse-engineered alien components. On her main workbench sat a device no larger than a microwave oven, the prototype quantum disruptor that might save humanity. She placed her hand on it, feeling both hope and fear. We just need a little more time, she whispered to herself, as above them, the Taiyang fleet prepared for conquest. The first Taiyang strikes came without further warning, just 18 days after Admiral Sunwoo's ultimatum. In the pre-dawn hours over the Pacific, 5 warships descended from orbit, their weapon systems glowing with building energy. Their targets, the major military installations across Asia and North America. The plan was simple and had worked on dozens of worlds before. Eliminate defensive capabilities in a swift first strike, then demand immediate surrender before civilian casualties mounted. Admiral Sunwoo watched from his command center, a slight smile on his face. Begin the demonstration, he ordered. Brilliant beams of energy lanced downward from the alien ships, aimed at Earth's largest naval base in the Pacific. The Admiral expected to see explosions, devastation, and panic. Instead, something extraordinary happened. As the energy weapons struck their targets, a shimmering dome of blue-white light appeared above the base. The alien attack splashed against it like water on rock, dissipating in harmless flares of light. Similar scenes played out across the globe as each targeted installation activated previously hidden defenses. Adaptive shield technology, reverse-engineered from Taiyang gifts, but modified with Earth's alternative approach to quantum physics, absorbed the initial bombardment. Then came the response. From concealed silos and bunkers, Earth's new defenses rose. They didn't look impressive. Simple antenna arrays and dish-like structures. But their effect was immediate. Focused beams of distorted quantum energy reached up to the attacking Taiyang ships, not damaging them but disrupting their sensitive systems. On the bridge of his attack vessel, Commander Taewon watched in disbelief as his weapons systems flickered and failed. "What is happening?" he demanded of his crew. "Our targeting systems are malfunctioning," his weapons officer reported, frantically working controls that no longer responded properly. "Something is interfering with the quantum stabilizers." In orbit, Lieutenant Juwoo's hands moved rapidly across her console, trying to make sense of the data flooding in from the attack ships. Her face, usually calm and composed, now showed open shock. "Impossible," Lieutenant Juwoo reported to Admiral Sunwoo, her voice tight with disbelief. "Their defensive capabilities have advanced beyond our intelligence estimates. They're using some form of quantum disruption field that's affecting our systems." Admiral Sunwoo's expression darkened as he watched the tactical display. None of his ships had been destroyed, but 3 were now retreating to higher orbit with systems failures. This was not how first strikes against primitive worlds were supposed to proceed. "They've been studying us," Admiral Sunwoo realized, his fist tightening on the arm of his command chair. "Recall the attack ships. Recalibrate our approach immediately." He turned to his communications officer. "Contact the Imperial Council. They need to know what we're facing." On Earth, in the diplomatic center established for alien communications, Dr. Park received an urgent message from Taiyang representatives. They demanded explanation for Earth's hidden military capabilities and hostile response to what they termed a limited security operation. Dr. Park smiled thinly at the transparent attempt to frame their unprovoked attack as a defensive measure. She had spent months studying Taiyang psychology and diplomatic patterns. "We wish to discuss terms of limited cooperation," she told the Imperial representatives, her voice projecting calm reasonableness while giving away nothing. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding about Earth's defensive posture. As she engaged in this diplomatic theater, buying precious time, Commander Ji-hoon's Special Forces teams were already in motion around the globe. Transport planes and submarines delivered compact quantum disruption devices to strategic locations worldwide. Each unit was designed to interfere with Taiyang technology in a specific way. Some targeting weapons, others propulsion, still others their sophisticated sensor arrays. In an underground facility beneath the Ural Mountains, Ji-hoon himself oversaw the activation of the largest quantum disruptor yet built. The massive device required enormous power, drawing energy from 3 nuclear plants dedicated to its operation. "Status report," he requested, watching technicians make final adjustments. "All systems nominal, Commander," Dr. Yumhe replied, not looking up from her monitoring station. "Field strength is at 87% and climbing. When activated, this will disrupt Taiyang communications across a quarter of their fleet." Ji-hoon nodded, his expression betraying nothing of the tension he felt. The shield network held against their first attack, but they'll adapt quickly. "That's why we need to deploy everything before they realize what we're doing," Dr. Yunha agreed. "Each system only works once before they can compensate." Across space, in the Taiyang Empire's Central Command Station, the Imperial Council had assembled in emergency session. The 12 senior leaders of the Empire viewed Admiral Sunwoo's report with growing alarm. "These humans advance faster than any species we've encountered," stated Councillor Minjin, the oldest and most experienced member. "They've adapted our own technology against us within months. This defies all historical patterns of species development." "Perhaps we should consider a diplomatic approach," suggested another counselor. "If they can advance this quickly, they might be more valuable as allies than subjects." Admiral Sunwoo's holographic image shook his head firmly. "With respect, counselors, allowing them more time only increases the risk. Their approach to quantum physics appears to diverge from our understanding in ways that could eventually threaten Imperial technology superiority." The Council debated briefly, but the evidence was clear. These humans represented something unprecedented, a species that could absorb and modify advanced technology at an alarming rate. The Council's decision was unanimous. Full conquest immediately. We cannot risk allowing them further development time. Within hours, the entire Taiyang fleet began to move. Hundreds of warships descended from their holding positions into lower orbit, forming a planetary blockade designed to isolate Earth completely. This was no longer a limited operation but full-scale planetary subjugation. As the Empire deployed their planetary blockade, Earth activated its defense grid. The network of quantum disruptors and shield generators that had been secretly installed over 6 months of apparent negotiations powered up simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating. Taiyang ships suddenly found their targeting systems malfunctioning and communications disrupted. Vessels that had operated in perfect coordination now could not even contact each other. Precision weapons became useless as targeting computers failed. Navigation systems showed false readings, causing some ships to drift dangerously close to each other. On the flagship, alarms blared as system after system reported failures. Admiral Sunwoo stared at the chaos unfolding on his command displays, his face ashen. How did they develop these countermeasures so quickly? He demanded of no one in particular. Our technology should be centuries beyond their comprehension. Lieutenant Juwu, still attempting to restore communications with the fleet, looked up with sudden understanding. "Sir, the diplomatic gifts, the cultural exchange materials, the technical demonstrations, everything we showed them." Admiral Sunwoo's eyes widened as realization struck. Every interaction had been an opportunity for the humans to study Taiyang technology. What the Empire had intended as displays of superiority had instead been learning opportunities for a dangerously adaptive species. They'd been preparing for war since the moment we arrived. Admiral Sunwoo realized too late, watching as his mighty invasion fleet drifted in disarray above the suddenly not-so-primitive planet below. The Taiyang Empire launched their full invasion with overwhelming force 3 days after their blockade failed. Admiral Sunwoo had abandoned subtlety for brute strength. 2,000 dropships descended toward major population centers, while orbital platforms targeted Earth's infrastructure. The sky filled with alien vessels, their engines glowing bright against the morning sky. "Begin the ground assault," Admiral Sunwoo commanded from his flagship. "Disable their power grid and communication networks first." Taiyang soldiers prepared for combat in the dropships. They wore advanced battle armor and carried weapons that could level buildings. They had conquered dozens of worlds this way. Earth would be no different, despite the initial setbacks. In Houston, people watched the approaching dropships with fear. But beneath the city, in a control center hidden 200 feet underground, General Minho gave the order everyone had been waiting for. Activate all defensive grids. Begin Operation Shield Wall. Around the world, hidden generators powered up. They didn't look impressive. Most were simple metallic cylinders with strange patterns etched on their surfaces. But when activated, they created quantum disruption fields that spread outward in invisible waves. The effect was immediate. Across the sky, Taiyang dropships suddenly veered off course. Some lost power completely, dropping from the sky like stones. Others managed emergency landings, but far from their intended targets. The alien ground forces that did land found themselves facing weapons that seemed impossibly advanced. Earth soldiers carried rifles that emitted no visible beam, but caused Taiyang battle armor to shut down on contact. Tanks and conventional military vehicles had been retrofitted with small quantum disruptors that rendered alien energy weapons useless. In Beijing, a squad of Taiyang soldiers advanced toward the city center, only to have their weapons and armor fail completely. Local defense forces quickly surrounded and captured them. Similar scenes played out across the globe. What should have been a swift conquest had become a disaster for the invaders. Commander Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the EDS Defender, Earth's first combat-ready spacecraft. The vessel had been built in secret beneath the Antarctic ice, incorporating reverse-engineered Taiyang technology with human innovations. It wasn't as large or powerful as the alien warships, but it had one critical advantage. Its systems were designed specifically to counter Taiyang technology. "All systems operational," reported his second-in-command. "The other 7 vessels report ready for launch." Ji-hoon nodded, his face set with determination. "All units, execute Operation Thunderstorm." From hidden bases worldwide, Earth's defense forces emerged with spacecraft that shocked the invaders with their sophistication. They rose from mountain bunkers, ocean depths, and desert hideaways, 8 vessels built with the combined resources of a united Earth. Admiral Sunwoo received the reports with disbelief. "Spacecraft? That's impossible. Show me." The tactical display revealed Earth vessels rising to engage his fleet. They were smaller than Taiyang warships, but moved with surprising speed and agility. Their design showed clear Taiyang influence, but with modifications the Admiral didn't recognize. "Target those ships immediately," he ordered. Taiyang gunners tried to lock weapons on the Earth vessels, but the targeting systems couldn't maintain a lock. The human ships emitted interference fields that confused the alien sensors. The EDS Defender led the attack, targeting the propulsion systems of the Taiyang dropships still in orbit. Each hit from its modified weapons caused cascading system failures in the alien vessels. "How are they doing this?" demanded a Taiyang commander as his ship's systems failed one by one. The answer was simple but devastating. Earth scientists had discovered that Taiyang quantum technology required perfect symmetry in its field equations. By introducing calculated asymmetric pulses, the human weapons created catastrophic failures in alien systems. Admiral Sunwoo watched in growing horror as his invasion force suffered mounting casualties. Ships that had conquered a dozen worlds were now drifting helplessly in Earth orbit. Ground forces that had never been defeated were being captured or forced to retreat. How is this possible? He demanded of his staff. They were pre-spaceflight 6 months ago. No one had an answer for him. No species in Imperial records had ever adapted so quickly or turned the Empire's own technology against it so effectively. The worst was yet to come. As the battle entered its third hour, Earth deployed its ultimate defense, a quantum field generator that Dr. Yuna and her team had been developing since first contact. The massive device, powered by the combined output of 3 nuclear plants, activated from a facility deep in the Amazon rainforest. When activated, it created a pulse that spread throughout near-Earth space. The pulse wasn't destructive in a conventional sense. It didn't damage hull plating or harm organic life. Instead, it created catastrophic failures in Taiyang quantum systems. Ship after ship went dark, drifting helplessly in orbit. Life support systems remained functional, but weapons, propulsion, and communications failed completely. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Sunwoo stared at the disaster unfolding around him. Half his fleet was disabled. Ground forces were being captured. Earth vessels were now targeting his command ships with growing confidence. His flagship shuddered as something impacted the hull. Warning lights flashed across his command console. "Status report," he demanded. "Our outer shield layer has failed," reported a junior officer, his voice shaking. "Primary weapons are offline. The human vessels are targeting our engine sections." Admiral Sunwoo had never faced defeat in his long career. He had conquered 18 worlds for the Empire. But he recognized the reality of the situation. His forces were outmatched by a species that should have been easy prey. "Full retreat," Admiral Sunwoo ordered, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "All functional vessels, withdraw to the system edge. We must regroup and reassess." The remaining Taiyang ships that could still maneuver began to pull away from Earth orbit. But Earth's forces pursued, their vessels moving with increasing confidence as they pushed the invaders back. Commander Ji-hoon coordinated the Earth fleet with precision. "Do not let them regroup," he ordered. "Maintain pursuit until they're beyond Mars orbit." The human ships chased the retreating Taiyang vessels, disabling any that lagged behind. What had begun as an invasion had become a rout, with the supposedly superior force fleeing from the primitive defenders. 3 days later, in the imperial capital across the galaxy, the Taiyang Imperial Council met in emergency session. The news from Earth had stunned the entire empire. A supposedly minor conquest had turned into an unprecedented military disaster. "All contact with Admiral Sunwoo's fleet has been lost," reported the military liaison. "Our last communications indicated they were being forced out of the target system by Earth vessels." The council members exchanged shocked glances. Nothing like this had happened in the Empire's 1,000-year history of expansion. "How could a pre-spaceflight civilization defeat our most experienced fleet?" asked one counselor. "They appear to have reversed our technical advantage," replied another. "The reports suggest they adapted our own technology and found weaknesses we didn't know existed." The Imperial Council faced an unprecedented situation. A supposedly primitive world had not only resisted their conquest, but was now forcing them back. The implications were staggering, not just for the Earth campaign, but for Imperial security throughout the galaxy. "If they can advance this quickly in just 6 months," said the eldest counselor gravely, "what will they be capable of in a year? In 5 years?" No one had an answer, but the question hung in the air like a storm cloud, promising trouble that would soon break over the entire empire. At the edge of the solar system, near the orbit of Neptune, the remaining Taiyang fleet regrouped. 37 ships had survived the retreat from Earth, less than a fifth of their original invasion force. The massive flagship, though damaged, still maintained its imposing presence among the smaller vessels. Admiral Sunwoo stood at the viewport of his command deck, staring at the distant sun. His usual confident posture was gone, replaced by the stiff bearing of a military commander facing his first defeat. Behind him, his officers worked quietly, afraid to draw his attention. "Admiral," his communications officer finally spoke up. "We're detecting an approaching vessel. Earth origin." Sun Wu turned sharply. "Attack formation." "Sir," the officer continued, "they're broadcasting on our channels. They're requesting permission to dock under a flag of truce. They say they bring terms from Earth's United Council." "Terms?" Sun Wu almost laughed. "They wish to negotiate after this setback." Lieutenant Zhu, who had survived the retreat, stepped forward. "Sir, I recommend caution. These humans have consistently surprised us. We should at least hear what they have to say." After a long moment, Sun Wu nodded. "Allow them to dock. Triple security protocols. Any sign of hostile action, destroy them immediately." The Earth vessel approached slowly. It was smaller than the Taiyang warships but showed the same sleek design principles, clearly incorporating reverse-engineered technology. It docked with precise control that impressed even the veteran Taiyang pilots observing the maneuver. Dr. Park and Commander Ji-hoon stepped through the airlock onto the Taiyang flagship. They wore simple blue uniforms with Earth's new united emblem, a globe surrounded by stars. They carried no visible weapons, though the Taiyang security officers scanned them thoroughly nonetheless. Admiral Sun Wu received them in his conference room. He had deliberately chosen not to meet them in the more impressive command center, a small psychological tactic to maintain his sense of control. "Your resistance is impressive but futile," Admiral Sun Wu stated without preamble, his voice cold. "The Empire spans hundreds of worlds. What you've seen is merely an exploratory force. The full might of our military would turn your Earth to ash." Dr. Park smiled slightly. This was exactly the response they had expected from studying Taiyang military psychology. "We know exactly how many worlds," she replied calmly, activating a small device on her wrist. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing detailed maps of the Taiyang Empire, including their homeworld and major colonies. The display included military outposts, resource extraction facilities, and even the hyperspace routes connecting the Imperial worlds. "We've been busy studying more than just your technology," Dr. Park continued. The star map rotated to highlight the Taiyang homeworld. "Your central systems are particularly interesting. 3 habitable planets with a combined population of 22 billion, heavily defended of course, but with notable vulnerabilities in your southern orbital quadrant." Admiral Sun Wu's face paled slightly. "How did you?" "Your ships contain detailed navigational data," Commander Ji-hoon explained. "And your cultural exchange materials included historical records that our analysts found quite informative. Your empire expanded rapidly about 300 years ago, but has stagnated since then, hasn't it?" Before Sun Wu could respond, Ji-hoon stepped forward and placed a small cylindrical device on the conference table. "We've also developed technologies you haven't discovered yet." He touched a control panel on its surface. Immediately, all systems in the conference room shut down. The lights went out. The environmental controls stopped. Even the Admiral's personal communication device went dark. For 10 seconds, they sat in complete darkness. Then, just as suddenly, everything came back online. "This is a fraction of our capability," Ji-hoon stated quietly. "A simple demonstration." Admiral Sun Wu's expression had changed from anger to something close to fear. "What do you want?" Dr. Park delivered Earth's terms. "The Taiyang Empire will withdraw completely from our solar system. Earth will be recognized as sovereign territory, off-limits to imperial expansion. Any future contact will be conducted through proper diplomatic channels, with representatives meeting at neutral locations. Furthermore," she continued, "you will share this information with your Imperial Council. Earth does not seek conflict with the Taiyang Empire. We have no immediate plans for expansion beyond our solar system. However, we will defend ourselves with all necessary force against any future aggression." Admiral Sunwoo had recovered some of his composure. His eyes narrowed as he considered their words. "And if we refuse?" he challenged. Commander Ji-hoon touched his device again. The holographic display changed to show targeting data for the Taiyang homeworld. It included orbital defense patterns, shield frequencies, and planetary vulnerability assessments. "Then humanity will demonstrate its full technological potential," he answered, his voice level. "We prefer peace, but we're prepared for the alternative." He paused, letting the threat sink in. "Our scientists have already developed long-range versions of the quantum disruptors you experienced. They can be delivered via your own hyperspace routes, using the principles we extracted from your ship designs." Dr. Park added quietly, "We don't wish to harm anyone. But we will not be conquered, Admiral. Not by you. Not by anyone." The Admiral's face paled as he realized the truth. They had catastrophically underestimated humanity's adaptability and resolve. These weren't primitive savages to be subjugated. They were something the Empire had never encountered before. A species that could take the Empire's own technology and improve upon it in ways the Empire hadn't imagined. "I will convey your terms to the Imperial Council," he finally said, his voice subdued. "We'll wait for their response," Dr. Park replied. "Our vessel will remain docked for 12 Earth hours." 3 days later, the Taiyang fleet departed the solar system. Their ships moved in perfect formation, but there was no glory in their departure. They left behind disabled vessels that could not be repaired, and hundreds of personnel who had been captured during the failed invasion. Earth's United Nations celebrated their victory while establishing a permanent defense network. The quantum technology that had saved humanity was now being adapted for peaceful purposes: energy production, medical breakthroughs, and the beginning of true interstellar capabilities. In the Grand Meeting Hall in Geneva, where the first contact had occurred just 7 months earlier, world leaders gathered to plan humanity's future. "The stars are open to us now," Dr. Park told the assembly. "But we must move forward with wisdom and caution. The galaxy contains wonders, but also dangers." General Minho, now head of Earth's United Defense Forces, added, "We'll continue to strengthen our defenses. The Taiyang won't be the only empire out there." Commander Ji-hoon's report was more optimistic. "Our ships are ready for exploratory missions beyond our system. We've learned more in 7 months than we might have in a century of normal development." Across the galaxy, in the imperial capital, the Taiyang Council met in solemn session. Admiral Sunwoo's report had been received with shock and disbelief, but the evidence was undeniable. "These humans represent something unprecedented," the council elder stated. "They learn and adapt faster than any species we've encountered." After long debate, the council added a new classification to their records: Earth, approach with extreme caution. A formal diplomatic message was dispatched to Earth, acknowledging their sovereignty and proposing future diplomatic relations on equal terms, something the Empire had never before offered to a newly contacted world. In orbit around Earth, the first true human starship neared completion. Built with the knowledge gained from the invasion, it represented humanity's first step into the wider galaxy. Its name, displayed proudly on its hull, summed up the lesson humanity had taught the stars: defiance. Humanity had delivered its warning to the galaxy. They would not be conquered. The end.